rodeos, but then a new form of entertainment popped up: movies. Helen was hired to ride horses in westerns, earning $15 a week, which was a lot of money at that time. She became the stunt woman for the popular movie series The Hazards of Helen. When the star got sick, Helen took over as the lead and did several episodes. It continued for years, with Helen doing stunts in 69 of them. Totally fearless, she tackled each stunt the writers came up with. One of her most dangerous ones had her driving a team of horses, detaching them from the wagon, standing on their backs, catching a rope hanging from a bridge, and swinging from the horses onto a moving train. She did it without getting hurt, but she did get a raise. Helen became known as the first professional stuntwoman in Hollywood and was given her own movie series called A Daughter of Daring. And her stunts got even more daring. For one of her most famous scenes, she practiced jumping from the roof of a train station onto a train while it was standing still. But when the camera started rolling, so did the train. She jumped, landed, and rolled almost off the back of the train. Luckily, she grabbed onto an air vent at the last second. She then dangled over the edge, making the scene even more dramatic. In 1924, Helen joined the Ringling Bros and Barnum and Bailey Circus as a trick rider. It was exciting, but not as exciting as doing movie stunts. After 3 years, she returned to Hollywood, trading her horses for motorcycles and even more incredible stunts. One of her most impressive scenes involved riding a motorcycle onto a train platform, through the open door of a boxcar, and onto a flat car, all while the train chugged down the tracks. Helen's last appearance in a movie was in 1961, when she was 69 years old. This amazing and talented daredevil not only led an adventurous life, but blazed a trail for other fearless stunt women to make their mark in both movies and television. Helen Gibson. Lillian Boyer, wing walking wonder. When Lillian was in her early 20s, she worked as a waitress in Chicago. 2 of her regular customers were barnstormers, airplane pilots who flew so low they skimmed the roofs of barns and did stunts for entertainment. It was the early days of flight, and the public was fascinated by aerial acrobatics. When the barnstormers asked Lillian to go for a ride in their open cockpit biplane, she didn't hesitate. It was love at first flight. A few days later, Lillian went up again, but this time she wasn't content to just enjoy the scenery. She climbed out of the cockpit and walked back and forth on the wing. Lillian left her waitressing days behind her and became a wing walker, performing in front of huge crowds at fairs and festivals all over the country and Canada. During her career, she stated many times that she never felt scared, even though she performed without safety gear or a parachute. She had complete trust in her partner, Billy Brock, a barnstormer and former World War I pilot. Before attempting a trick in the air, Lillian practiced in a barn. She also trained to keep herself in top physical shape. Their act was called Lillian Boyer's Flying Circus, and she did some of the most death-defying tricks of any of the daredevils of the day. To begin her 30-minute show, Lillian would stand on a speeding car as the plane swooped low over her. She'd grab onto a ladder and pull herself up onto the wing. Then she'd hang by one hand or dangle by her knees, the first woman daring enough to hang like that in midair. Another thrilling trick involved Lillian sliding her feet into straps on the plane's wings. Then Billy would do loops in the air, hoping that the straps didn't break. One of her most spectacular stunts was also the most dangerous. Lillian would crawl out of the cockpit and attach a thin cable to the wing's supporting bar. On the other end was a mouthpiece that she bit down on. Then she'd slowly slide off the wing and hang by her teeth. Lillian also did parachute drops. Once, after jumping from the plane, she realized she was descending circus performer, but Lillian was determined to join the circus. She practiced gymnastics and aerial acrobatics. At 14, she joined her mother's female troupe. In 1910, they traveled to America and performed for the Barnum and Bailey Circus. The act didn't get the reviews they were hoping for, and they headed back to Europe. Except for Lillian, she stayed determined to become a star. Her billing, Lillain Leitzel, the world's foremost and most daring aerial star, was almost bigger than she was. She performed in a nightclub, hanging from a rope and doing poses, twirls, and spins. A scout for the Ringling Bros circus caught her act. The tiny aerialist with the big personality signed a contract and was on her way to stardom. When the two circuses merged into the Ringling Bros and Barnum and Bailey, she became their headliner and stayed in that lofty position longer than anyone else. As their star, she had her own railroad car, complete with a baby grand piano. Lillian's act was as dramatic as she was. The lights dimmed, and she appeared in the glow of a spotlight. Not content to just climb the rope, she rolled and twirled her way up until she was 50 feet off the ground with no safety net. Hanging by a pair of silver rings, she twirled, spun, and did breathtaking acrobatics. The second part of her act featured her signature move. She slipped her wrist into a rope loop attached to a swivel. A drum roll began, all eyes focused on her. She would then swing her body around like a human propeller while cymbals crashed and the audience counted the turns. She was known for doing over 100 turns at a time. Her record was 249. As the act went on in a blur, Lillian's hair would slowly come undone, making it look like she was flying apart. And that was partially true. Each turn caused her shoulder